Started. All right. You'll see the red down though. So, welcome back to Cloud Day 3. I'm your trainer and architect, Sal Cosentino. Today is April 3rd, 2025. So, in this class, in the last class, if you guys were watching our part 2, we reviewed a little bit of questions and we had a little bit of review. We also talked about RAID, redundant array of inexpensive disks. We also talked about local virtual machine files. We talked about what a bare metal machine and how that works in diagram. We also talked about the differences between and misconclusions between VMware vSphere versus what VMware vCenter is versus what VMware ESXi, and I also explained that to you. So in our videos, I've also explained a little bit about what ESXi looks like versus what the UEI client for vSphere looks like. So this is when you would enter the data store or into the client using HTML5. Before version 5 before version 6, they weren't using the HTML5. They just started using that in version 6. So they were using the Adobe Flash as a get started to launch the UI. So they did a little bit of changes up after version 5.5 to starting with version 6. So in version 6, you started seeing the HTML5. And we also talk about our vSphere client, as you can see here, our vSphere client, where you have your data center, right, as a folder, and then you have your clusters within your ESXi hosts within your clusters, right? We also talked about Photon OS, and we also talked about the differences between OpenStack and VMware. So that was that. In day 2, we also talked about, what else did we talk about? We also talked about Windows 10 and 11 laptop and how to create a RAID. Did we create one with you already, Wayne?
A RAID array?
RAID array on your Windows 10. Did I show you how to do that using computer management?
I believe we did.
On a laptop. Okay. Laptop. What about your virtual machine?
We did a we did it with VMware. We did virtual machines with VMware.
Okay. All right. So I'll show you guys how to do that again if I have some time. That's pretty straightforward once we get to that. So what I'll do is I'll post that because I showed you how to do it through computer management on your laptop, and then I'll also show you how to do it on a virtual machine. I know your virtual machine wasn't created, so we weren't able to do it. So what I'll do is I'll put this into our day 3, and that'll be the first thing I want to show you. Before we review your machine, well, during the review of the machine, right? If for example we were to have a Windows, this has to be on a Windows 10 or 11 machine, right? So if you had what we can do is try to install another machine with Windows 10 and 11 as a test, and then that's where we can do like our tests for RAID, and then I'll show you how to create your RAIDs and your different partitions and volumes using the OpenStack, which is going to come a little bit later on. So you'll see a little bit of a difference, and it's good to depict both versions of it because you'll see them. You'll see companies use volumes and disk partitions and other partitions to create these virtual what are they called? Volumes and different disks within those volumes. So it's good to know the differences and how that works. I also want to talk about, we talked about hyperthreading. Did I explain what hyperthreading means? Where you're taking your physical cores and you're splitting them in half. So hyperthreading, if you have a virtual machine with 32 cores, your virtual machine has 16 cores that it can use. So know the differences between what that hyperthreading versus a virtual machine. And I think I explained it to you a little bit, but I'm gonna bring back the deck just in case. See if I can have the deck for you. So here's what hyperthreading is. Hyperthreading, it's a physical processor It's a physical processor. Let me get my pen here. So it's a physical processor that's also called a real CPU. So imagine in your machine, right? You have a machine here, and then within your machine you have your CPUs. You have two, let's say two CPUs. And I am sharing my screen. Let me see if I'm sharing my screen. I apologize if I'm not. So I will grab my whiteboard ready and I will share my screen with you in 1 second. All right. All right. Can you guys confirm on the side if you could see my screen? Just send me a message. All right, fantastic. I appreciate that. So when we look at here's some hyper threading that we talked about from our last class, and I want to bring this up again because that was one of the topics that we touched brief on. So imagine you have a logical computer and you have a physical CPU. You have hyperthreading. So what it is a physical CPU is also called a real CPU. So imagine this being a machine, right? And within your machine you have a CPU, right? You have that CPU, and then you have another core, right? Another CPU within that computer, a bare metal machine, right? So remember, the machine is a metal, it's a bare metal machine with nothing in it but a motherboard and a CPU chip, hard disks, batteries, uh, you know, uh, plugs, power supplies, and disks. So what I want you to understand is when we talk about logical versus physical, your logical is like your virtual environment. We call it a virtual environment versus your physical CPU. So in this instance, these are physical CPUs, right? Right? On a bare metal machine. Now, if we were to create this in our hypervisor 2 environment, so within our VMware environment, then we use something called logical CPU performance. So when we look at the CPUs in your machine, once we turn on the machine and we go to the task manager, for example, if this is a Windows machine, we're looking at the task manager and we're looking at the performance. We look at the real CPU versus, we're not looking at the real CPU, we're looking at the logical CPU, right? So it doesn't necessarily use all your CPU, but if you're giving it 2 cores out of the 32, like I mentioned before, you're using half of it. So it's basically taking 16. You're not physically using the full 16 capacity in that one machine, but you're physically using 2 or 1. Okay. We also have a dual core CPU, which has 2 physical processors with Pentium 4 processor with hyper-threading, has one physical, where hyper-threading has 1 physical processor, but 2 logical processor. These are called virtual processors. So when we talk about logical, like I said, they're virtual machines. They're within your virtual machines. They're logical. So remember that that's important in terms of the way they denote the wording, because you'll hear that a lot. They're not virtual CPUs or vCPUs. They're called logical CPUs. So what are logical CPUs? Again, logical CPUs are the number of physical cores times the number of threads you can run on each core, right? So this is known as hyperthreading. So if a computer has 4 cores, so say for example our computer has 4 cores, right? And then we run 2 threads per core. Let's say 2 virtual wires we call threads. Let's say these threads are wires. So each have 2 threads per core, right? Then it has 8 logical processors. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Now, those are for CPU cores. Now, the difference between a logical port processor is that, in layman's term, is a processor is basically your physical manifestation. So of 1 or more cores as an integrated circuit. So the cores are technically speaking processors themselves. So they're the processors themselves. Those are your cores. Okay. And are independent of each other. So when we say quad core processor, we mean that a single chip, so your chip, your CPU chip right here, right, has 4 cores within it. So there's one. So let's cut that in 4 pieces. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? Which are 4 computing elements. So it does 4 different things. So that's what hyperthreading is. Any questions? Okay, good. We also talked about, I want to bring quickly, we talked about the local machine files. Remember when we were creating our virtual machines, you'll notice that when you're creating your virtual machines in your environment, you'll see the above file folder structure. And when we're talking about thin provisioning, this is what thin provisioning is, right? It cuts it into minus S01 into sections of 2 MB files. Okay. So 2 MB files. So that way, every time you add stuff, these increase depending on the sectors that are within your design. You'll see a lot of folders. You'll see certain folders called like LCK folders. These are just file folders. These are created by default. You don't need them. They can be deleted. They don't need to be there, but they're just there. They get created when you create them. They're called lock files, right? So basically it's locking the file when it does something, and then it just creates a folder. It puts everything in that folder, and then once it's done, it removes it. So it's sort of like a temporary um like a warm up station, right? So when you're taking a break, it takes a break, it puts the file in there. You're on break for 15 minutes, and then you leave the office, your lunchroom to get off a break. Similar concept. So it uses those files, and those can be deleted. There's nothing in those files. I have a question here. Are these walk files used for replication VMs? These files are meant to replicate. Yes. So you're not physically replicating them. You're replicating them within your data stores. So what it is you have your virtual disk, right? So this is your virtual disk, and then you have your file share, right? And then you have your data store, right? So our data stores is where it stores all our files. So if we're replicating folders between two servers, then I mean between two disks, then RAID will take care of that, right? So RAID will have that information, or if you have a backup copy of something, that'll basically take up your replication. It'll do your replication for you, right? So within our virtual machines, we're going to be using our virtual machine disk file. So this file can be moved and replicated between different drives or separate drives aside from your C drive, right? So if you have an E drive, all right, this is your laptop, you have an E drive, and you want to replicate that to your data store virtually, or you can also move that to your E drive in a RAID configuration, or RAID 1 or RAID 5, right? So you can do that too. So does that help answer your question? Got it. So we also have these other files here. We have our virtual machine configuration. Now, I'll show you once we open this. It's just a bunch of text in a text file. So this can be opened in a text file, and I'll show you what those are. And then we have our team members, our XF files, and then we have our snapshot metadata. So I'll show you how to create a snapshot of last known configuration and power. And then we also have our NVRAM files, which is your virtual machine non-volatile RAM, and those are created when they're turned off. We also have logs. These are text. These are by default opened by Notepad, and you can view these and edit these. You can edit the VMX files, or you can edit and view those. You can view these logs, not edit them, but view them. But you can also edit the VMX files configuration if you know how to do that. In a lot of older classes, we used to edit the virtual machine configuration with our Hyper-V environment. So I'm going to show you what Hyper-V is. So this is my Hyper-V environment actually. Yes, the snapshot it contains memory contents. It's part of the memory contents. So when you're migrating over, it's part of that memory content. Yeah. So it has its information, right? Its RAM, its IO, um, and its hexadecimal information. when you're talking about the architecture of that. So here's I want to show you. So here's what Hyper-V is. I don't know if you see that, but this is my Hyper-V environment, Wayne. This is where I can kind of create new machines. This is a different environment than what you're physically using right now. So I used our Hyper 2 Workstation Pro to create a machine, right? A server machine, 2016, as you can see here. And then within that machine, I created my hypervisor. So if I were to draw it out, I'm using my laptop, right? And I'm now connecting from my laptop. I have my Hyper 2 visor, right? My Hyper 2, Hypervisor 2, Type 2, Type 2, right? In my laptop. This is my laptop, right? And then that Hypervisor 2 sits in my laptop on top of the operating system. So it sits on top of the operating system. So right. So that'll sit on top of my Windows 10 machine. And then from there, I'm able to grab a pen here. So within my Hypervisor 2, which is my Workstation Pro, I'm now able to create a hypervisor on my Windows Server machine. So I have my Windows Server 2016 OS, right? And then um, on top of that, I basically um, add my hypervisor, which is a piece of software. So this is software related. This is a software based um, hypervisor, which is software based, right? And then with that, I was able to um, add the role and feature. So this is just a feature, right? We install. It's a feature we install, right? If you want to try that later on, I can show you quickly, um, just to test it. So you have a Windows machine as well too, and a Linux machine. So if you look at the features here, I'm now able to go into my machine and add a role and feature. So if we're beginning the feature here, the feature and role and features wizard, we're going to click next, next. And if we look at it, we have our Hyper-V installed. So that's our Hyper-V feature that the role that we're able to install. And then just click next, next, finish, right? So I'm going to cancel out of that. And again, this is on like I said, a Windows Server 2016 a standard evaluation or data center evaluation, whatever you have. And then within here, I've actually created my virtual networks similar to what you have. And within here, I gave this machine, for example, if I'm looking at the design aspect of it, because I want you to try this as well too. I gave myself 2 disks, right? So I have my non-volatile disks, right, which is created offline, and then I have my SCSI when it turned online, which is also recommended, and I gave it 16 GB memory, right, logical, and then I gave it two logical processors, right, right. So I have 2 logical processors from the X amount of CPUs that I have on my thing. And then I also enabled the virtual um, Intel VT. So you want to make sure you enable that as well too. And I'll put that on the video if you're going ahead. So take this as an image and just create the machine. And once you create the machine, install the Windows Server 2016 edition. So all you need to do is just open up the internet and visit the download page. Right. So we can visit the download page. Microsoft um, Windows Server 2016 or 2019, whatever you want. Close. All right, close. So if you're going here, you're going to get the evaluation copy of it, and then you can go ahead and close that. Oh, let's add that. Add. And then, all right, close. All right, so, okay, let's add that as well too. No, we're not going to do that. Close. All right. So, so as you can see, you're going to download your Windows Server 2016 as well, because I also want you to try that as well too, as a different hypervisor. So if you're unfamiliar with VMware, you can also use Microsoft, and a lot of companies will have both. So it's good to know both at the same time. So what you're going to do here is you're going to download the ISO English for 64-bit, and you're going to follow the. It's not allowed to be filed. What do you mean? Okay. All right, let's try 2019. So again, you could try whatever version that you want. If not, just ask me. I'll send you the ISO link for free. I'll send that to you in a OneDrive. So again, like I said, you just log in, you look for the ISO version, English, and then what it's going to ask you to do is fill out a form. You fill out a form. Once that form is done, it'll go ahead and prompt you for a download, right? So in this instance, if I'm going to, um, okay, if I'm going, let's say, for example, um, so for example, if I was going here in my drive, and then what I would do is I would create the two disks, sort of what I did here. I created two disks, and then I can have my downloads. For example, I have the Windows Server 2016. I'll download it, and then that way you can go ahead and mount that to your ISO. So you're going to go ahead and mount that after within here. So once you download the ISO, you go to your settings, and then you'll see the CD DVD. So you're going to click on the ISO image. You're going to browse the image. And then, for example, here I have all the versions 12, 19, and what so forth. So I'm going to select the 2016 or the 2019, and then I'm just going to click open. And that way, when you start your virtual machine within Workstation Pro, it'll automatically load this for you, and you can go ahead and install it however you want, right? So um, any questions on how to do that? No? Okay, perfect. All right, so let's move on. Um, so that's Hyper-V. It's also another hypervisor, Hypervisor 2 or 1 in your whatever in your production environment or in your test environments. So in your test environment, this will act as a Hypervisor 2 that we're going to be installing on a virtual machine, right? When you're installing it within a virtual machine, we call that a nested virtualization, where it's nested. So you're installing a hypervisor within another, like you're installing it within that machine. So we call that nested. So when you're creating that nested environment, that's how that plays out for you. Um, so let's move on. So we talked about the different folders when we're creating these virtual folders for. Is that a type? It's type 2 because it's a test environment, right? We talked about hypervisors, right? So if we go back to our docs here, there's two different types of hypervisors. Let me see if I can find you the doc that I have here. Right. So we talked about use your personal device, not your work device. So these are the different types of hypervisors, right? So these are three types of hypervisors that you can use. And I typically use all three of them. But again, I want to show you Microsoft's and then VMware's, right? These are the two best ones that I feel like. I'm not a big fan about VirtualBox, but again, you're more than welcome to install it. I can show you how to install that at a later date. It's not hard. But these are the three best that I've seen so far for a hypervisor. And when you're installing them on your machine, on your laptop, we call that a hypervisor too, right? See if I can get some more information. Okay, so yeah, VirtualBox is cool. Yeah, it's a great application. there's got its disadvantages, right? So, great application. They're both Hypervisor 2 software. This is all Hypervisor 2. They're Type 2s, right? So it all depends. This one's free, right? These ones are paid, right? They stopped now. They gave you a free version, and I showed you that when we installed our um, when we installed our Broadcom account. We created the Broadcom account and we downloaded the Workstation Pro 17, and that's meant for training environments. So when we talk about the differences between 1 and 2, right now we're working on a hypervisor type 2. So again, it'll install on top of an operating system, right? So when we look at our hypervisor as well and your laptop, we've installed it on top of a hypervisor. We've installed this on top of your laptop, and we're installing this on in a virtual machine in a nested environment. Okay? Any questions? And again, it's slow. It takes up hardware resources. Yeah, we know that. It's not a heavy machine. I don't expect everybody to have tens and $10,000, $30,000, $100,000 server. If you do great, you're ahead of the game. It takes less hardware resources for its running in the hypervisor too. We use it a lot, again, like I said, in training environments. And again, your operating system, yeah, you'll notice that it takes up the CPU, RAM, and storage. So if you have a 16-bit laptop and you're running all these servers and stuff, it's not a good idea to have them all running at the same time, but suspend them, and I'll show you how to do that as well too. This was our design. So your hypervisor 2, right, is VMware Workstation Pro, like I showed you. And with our router, we've downloaded and registered these three. Your laptop is personally owned. We're not using a work laptop. Remember, we talked about that. Do not use a work laptop. And your laptop had, or specific laptops have 150 GB of, which is enough for that. And you have 8 gigs of RAM. If you are using 8 gigs of RAM, I recommend you stop the machine that you're not using and move from one to the other. So stop the machine, right? And then move to your other one, right? So if this one is Windows and this one is Ubuntu, if you're not using the Ubuntu, shut it down or suspend it. And I'll show you how to do that as well too. And then if you're not using that, suspend it so that it'll stop the the state that it's in, and that'll also, like I mentioned before, that'll also update the snapshot files, like I showed you before, when we're talking about that. So again, your goal is to, within your hypervisor 2, this little box here on your laptop, is to create this on-premises data center brancher environment, right? With these 2 disks and with these physical NIC cards. Now, I'm going to get you to change your screen. I'm going to stop sharing now. And I want you to share your screen. Wayne, if you can share your screen. And I've gone ahead and stopped there. And again, going back to that, the question of like non-volatile RAM. If we're using like VMware proxy, you ever heard of Proxmox?
No, I haven't.
It's another software. Same thing. It's a type 2 hypervisor. And a lot of small companies, like small and medium-sized companies, would have that in their environment. And again, typically when we create that VMware snapshot, it'll include the memory contents that I told you of the volatile RAM. So the state of it. Remember when we talked about the state? So we talked about the state, but it's optional. So it's optional. Just remember that it's very optional, right? Um, if the snapshot includes the RAM, it'll allow how to explain this. So if the snapshot includes the RAM, it should allow the VM to resume right from the snapshot file. So that's when you're opening up your virtual machine. So if you can open up Workstation Pro for me, or here, let me take control.
I'm looking for the request.
And we also have stuff. I don't know if you ever heard of forensic memory snapshots too. That's a different when we talk about volatile RAM and stuff. That also uses volatile RAM and forensics, right? There was something that we had to do, and I remember we were talking about forensic memory, and that came up in a conversation, and I learned a little bit about that, and yeah, that also actually has and contains volatile memory, right? So RAM that'll actually have that. So if you look at the top where it says Wireshark on top of Wireshark, want to click on VMware Workstation or just search for, or just type it in the apps. Yeah, search for app settings. Just type that in. Yeah, there you go. Open. And I think I'm taking control. Did I lose control maybe?
I didn't see the request.
So again, you have to kind of understand. Like it doesn't like for example, the snapshot file will have the RAM. I took control. You should see it at the top, Wayne. Move your mouse in the center of the laptop where your meeting is. If you like, yeah, you'll see it at the top. Let me try again. Sharing the content. Uh,
Oh, I was covered by now.
there we go. It's okay. No worries, no worries. So let me know when I can drag around. But there is a like I said, type 2 and type 1 we went over the instance. Everything's there. It's good for there we go. There I am. Okay. So when we were talking about the volatile RAM, the snapshot files, like I said, the snapshot includes the RAM. It allows your VM to reboot from a saved disk. So for example, if I have this machine on and I need to save space, um, I would go to power and then I would suspend guest, right? Right? I would suspend guest or shut down or shut down guest. But in this case, you can suspend the guest. Now, if we're talking about snapshot files, yeah. So for example, if I have a snapshot file, right, I'm just gonna call this just a test example, right, of a snapshot file. I've now taken the snapshot file. So if I go to the configuration file, remember, which is now in your C drive, right? Right. We're gonna move this to a external drive. Do you have your external drive plugged in? Remember, I want to move this stuff. I want
Let
to
me
move this
see.
stuff.
It should be D. But sometimes the USB.
Is that it?
Yeah,
Okay, perfect. Okay.
yeah, that's
All
it.
right.
Yeah.
All right. So that's this is
I have to play around with the. Sometimes the connection gets a little bit shaky.
I would also move the folders into one folder for now so that it's not easily
Hold on,
uh
just 1 second. I need to do one
yeah.
just mentions the USB.
But like I said, right, when we're talking about the snapshot containing volatile, yeah, so um you know, they don't include volatile RAM, these snapshots, but like I said, it just captures that state. So it'll capture the state and it'll create a file, right? Of that given moment. It doesn't include the volatile RAM. Um, and when obviously in a snapshot, when you're creating snapshots, Wayne, it'll include the RAM, but whereas the VM will be resumed at this point. So if you stop it here and then you go to here, you go to the Workstation Pro and you suspend the guest, or sorry, you take the snapshot, right? You'll lose everything before that. It'll go back to an earlier state. So sometimes it's best to like before you create one, you create a snapshot, and after you install the software, nothing on it, right? And then let's say every day or so, you create another snapshot, right? So you have updates of it. It's sort of like there's no automation for this. It's for you to kind of like do this, in between sessions. And again, it's always good to have a second copy of it, like I said, just so that you have the backup, right? Um,
Okay.
forensic snapshots. Talk to you about that too, right? Again, that's just for processes, malware, if there's malware. So it's a lot of security stuff, right? Like sometimes you'll get malware in the memory. So again, using these memory dumps, um, you know, for memory dumps in forensic memory snapshots, then yeah, there's different software for that. Like you can't do it within here. There's different software for that. There's something called Line and WinPmem, which is another cisternal that you can use. And you can take memory dumps of those, RAM dumps of those, and then that'll contain the volatile RAM if that's what you need. But again, in this instance, it's a test environment. You're just learning how to, use OpenStack, but it's something to think about. Um, so here's your machine. Your D drive is ready, right? So what we're gonna do is we are going to let's see if we could do this for now. Hold on a second. If you don't mind, what I'm gonna do, Wayne, is did I create a new folder? Hold on, what's going on? New folder. Did I create a new folder?
Maybe the third time's the charm.
Maybe it didn't let me. It didn't let me. So just create a new folder for now. Just create something and call it backup. I mean, call it my stuff.
I may have.
Oh, it's not responding. Okay,
Just
let it
a
take its time.
second.
How big is? You said it's a terabyte, 2 terabytes. So try.
Yeah, I think I might have it.
Uh, okay.
Yeah, let's see what we can do here. I might have something else.
What if we disable our OneDrive for now? Close our OneDrive for now.
That would be perfect. Yeah, let's
That'll
do that.
save. That'll save us some memory as well too.
Okay, let's do
Remember what I
that.
said? Never use your OneDrive because it takes up a lot of a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll basically move all their stuff from the cloud to online, and that just takes up a lot of space. Like you're taking up a lot of space, right? So sometimes it's best to not do that, close it or shut it down in between when you're working on these VMs, right? In this environment. Now once you're done, you turn it back on at the end of the day.
Okay, let's do it.
So let's go ahead and right click here. And what I'm going to do is just shut it down. Uh, yeah, click. Do you have anything that you need to save? You want to close that as well
No,
too?
no, I'm good.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to just go here and I'm going to pause syncing for now because I don't want to sync anything. And I'm going to do that for 2 hours. And then I'm also going to go to quit here and I'm going to close the OneDrive. So again, this will obviously help us with a little bit of space too, especially in our situation. If we go to our task manager, we don't have much, right? We're trying to alleviate whatever we can here, and to add VMware files or VMs on this machine is just going to increase it. It's going to slow everything down, right? So um, give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Give me 1 second. All right, sorry about that. So again, you have your memory, you have your CPU, you have your disk. Again, we're trying to alleviate space. So whatever we can do to alleviate the space during this scenario will help as well too, Wayne, especially in this instance. So try to close whatever you're not using. Let's try to give a little bit of space. So that's why I kind of want you to create all your virtual machines from here to there. That way you're not really using up that physical memory and that the resources that we need. Just make note of that and use it for the next time. So what I'm going to show you in this video too is what we're going to do is we're also going to, can you click on that for me? It looks like it's not letting me.
Yeah.
Can you close that? Close
Close
this
the
right here.
task manager.
Yeah, if you don't mind. Okay. All right. So if we go to this PC, all right, do we have another drive we can use? So I'm going to close this. Is that okay? Can I close all the links?
Yes.
Can I
That's fine.
close all the? Yeah, it's fine. Okay.
That's fine. That's perfectly fine.
All right. Just gonna close this. Close all windows. Try to save a little bit of space for us that way. There's no lag. I don't see any lag, which is good. I'm very surprised with an 8 gig laptop. Um, so you're using are you using BitLocker here?
No BitLocker.
Okay, okay. All right. Well, that's why I don't want to use it either, right? So I want to use something different. Is this a work laptop or personal
It's
laptop?
home. Home.
Home laptop? Okay. Okay. Okay, so I want you to plug in the device so that it recognizes the device.
The external device.
External device, yeah, external device.
I think it with the cable. I'll try one more time. In there.
Hey, Wayne.
Yes.
All right, can you make sure that this is connected? So what's happening here is we're trying to cut it, and then I had that error there. So I think it disconnected the drive. Can you ensure that the drive is properly added? Okay,
Hopefully it won't.
I hope so. Should this PC? See. So I have a local disk D. No, there we go. So that's the one that we're going to be using. So what I need to ensure is in here, we're going to take this file, right? We're going to cut it. It's pretty easy. Just cut it so that it's away from here. And then in our virtual machine folder, we're just going to paste it. And that should move the file contents. You'll notice that once it's done, we're not able to power this on because the configuration file is pointing in a different direction. So what we'll do is we'll edit the machine settings within here, and it's pretty easy. It's just you need to close it, and then you just need to open the folder again, and then go to your Wayne's virtual machine file, and then within here you have a VM virtual machine, a VMX file here. Let's see. And I want to machine configuration file. So that's your VMX file. So that's the machine that we're going to use to open it up. So we're just going to wait till this finishes. And did it finish? Okay, how big is this folder? More options, properties. There we go. So yeah, that's your full 130 megs. So that machine there is 130 megs. So you'll notice that it won't work when we click on it. So when we clicked on it, it didn't work. So what we did was, see how it doesn't, it's removed from the library. So it's not able to from your C drive. So that's good. We did good there. And you'll see a red X there once it's done. So we're going to remove this and remove it from our folder here, our computer library, and then go to file and then open. And then this is where we're going to point to our D drive, right? And we're going to open up the folder, and we're going to open up the virtual machine configuration file. I want to see why it's not.
You're looking for more files, right?
No, I'm looking for not the file. I'm looking for the extension. It doesn't show the extension. See, usually when we open, oh, okay. So I see. Because we're in a D drive. It won't. Okay, there we go. We need to go to extension. Here we go. All extensions. All right. So if we click on that machine, the folder in our drive, we double click on our folder machine. So you'll see all the extensions here. So within here, right? These are all the extensions. And remember when I showed you the picture of my Windows server? I showed you that picture and I showed you all the different versions of it. So in this instance, what we did was we used thin provision, and thin provision cuts it into one, you'll see 1 megabyte files. And then that way it'll divide it, the sectors into it. So in this file, it's got 30 sectors, right? But it doesn't use all of them. The more information you add, the more software you add, some of these sectors get filled, right? These sections get filled. And then you'll see like from 001 to this one here, 0001, you'll see a difference in size, right?
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is, so what I'm going to do is open up the VMX file. Pretty straightforward. And I'm going to close this. Close this now because I showed you. And I'm going to open up that file. All right. So I should see it open very shortly. Let's go. Oh, wait, I think something's happening. The blue circle. Hang on.
Okay.
I didn't see the blue circle there. So it looks like it's opening it or sort of opening it. Let's wait till that finishes. Okay. Didn't open it. So we'll go back. I guess it didn't open it. So if we go back to this PC, it didn't read the drive again. So you're going to have to put the drive in.
I'm going to try a different USB port. Maybe that'll be different.
There we go. We're gonna open up that. And yeah, see, it's not responding because it hasn't popped up yet. It shows here on the side, but it didn't. So I'll get you to, there we go. Oh, no, it wants to come. Okay. Just a little bit of a lag here. Yeah, so try for the next time if you don't mind, Wayne. Just try to make sure you have enough memory for me.
I
That
have
way
another. I have another USB drive that I can try. I'll try that.
yeah. Could be an external, could be a NAS, could be a server, could be anything that's read and write speeds. So you also got to look at your read and write speeds, right? Especially when you're dealing with these external devices, you want to look at the read and write speeds. That'll help you. So typically, you won't find this on a real machine. In a production environment, you'll see this. This will be on a LUN, on a LUN or a data store. That's not even in any part whatsoever. So, make sure that in a secure environment, you want to make sure that this is on a LUN or on a SAN. This will be on a SAN solution or a virtual SAN solution across different LUNs and data stores, right? Um, that's how that works, right? But in our environment, we don't have much resources, so we're gonna do with what we have to get to where we have it. If you're able to double click on this, what happened? Are you able to double? Okay, it's not accessible. Okay, so let's cancel. All right, let's get this accessible first. So I want you to go ahead and go to this PC. Okay, it's accessible. Okay, perfect. And then if I go to Wayne's virtual machine, yeah, see, it's not ready. Is the device ready?
It's got a red light on it, but
But that's how you would do that. You would basically do it that way, right? Wayne, you would make sure that that's how it's done. Now, again, when we're creating the machine, right? Well, we won't spend too much time, but that's how you would do it. So try to if you can get one, great. If not, not a big deal. I'll just show you how to do it. We'll install it here and then you can transfer it over for the next class. So what I want you to do is I want you to create a new machine. And this is where your external drive will come, right? So you're going to create a typical. Click next. You're not going to install the operating system because if you do decide to click on that, you'll receive an error because you haven't built a machine, right? So imagine not building a machine and try to load the operating system before even creating the machine, right? So that'll work. That won't work, right? So what we do is we say we'll install it later, and we'll create our machine, right, with our hard disk, our NATs, our network cards, our physical network cards or virtual network cards, our two hard disks, our virtual CPUs, et cetera, right? So we want to install this later. Now, in this instance, we're going to be installing, let's install a Linux machine. Let's install a Linux machine. Right? In this instance, I'm going to select Ubuntu, and I'm just going to click next. Right? And if you see the location, remember what we talked about. We want to move that location to, we can just rename it to the folder name. So if in your instance, if that SSD drive, all you need to do is create, you can browse to that folder, right? Not in your OneDrive, but you want to kind of scroll down um, to that disk there. So if you go to this PC, um, do you have a drive connected here? Wait. So for example, if this was your D drive or E drive, your external, then you would select the external. But in this case, what we're going to do is we'll create this machine now, and we'll create it within our Wayne's virtual machine, and then I'll get you to move it. So for now, we're not going to spend too much time.
Let's do that.
Yeah, let's try to move it later on. You can move it later on, but I showed you 2 different ways of how to move it. So what we'll do is once you find that a common denominator and you get that machine, the USB working, or that external drive working, or whatever you're using, or server, then we can you can do that later on. But it's in the video. It's for everybody to see. So I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it Ubuntu. Let's call it OpenStack. So OpenStack Ubuntu server, and then today's date, April 3rd, right? So that'll be your Ubuntu server, right, that you're creating for today. And I've done that, and I'm going to take a copy. I'm going to rename this and then copy and paste that. Just ensure that your folder selected is not new folder, but it is called Ubuntu server. And then we're going to hit OK. So that's going to be, so basically what you're going to do, if this was your D drive, right? So your D drive or your external drive would have to show the letter that way, right? And then that's how the folder structure would be. Get it?
Okay.
And then we're going to rename our server Ubuntu, OpenStack Ubuntu server, and we'll call it 01. So that's our virtual machine, right? Today's date. And we're going to click next, right? You understand? So in this instance, I'm just going to create the machine. I'll create it in the C, and then you can just move it and create 2 machines. If you can create 2 machines, great. Again, that would help me a lot. So remember when we also talked about split virtual disks? The split virtual disk, when we created it, you saw the different S001-001, S2-002. It splits it. So that's what it's doing. It's just making it easier for you to move the virtual machine to another computer. So sort of what we're doing now, where we're reducing performance with very large disks. So imagine taking smaller files, right? Like 30 smaller files of 2 megs. So that's, 2 megs. 30 of those would be what? 60 megs, right? So imagine taking, you're splitting 2 meg files of 30, right? Between just taking 160 meg file and moving it over, right? So that also, especially when you're going across the data centers, I mean the data stores or within the LUNs, that'll help you reduce the performance with very large disks, right? So what we do is we split it. In your instance, since because you have an 8 gig laptop, so we try to split the virtual disks into multiple files. Then we also gave it, I think we gave it 200, Wayne, right? We gave it 200. So again, you're not physically using the 200, right? You're using whatever it takes. Yeah, so you're using like 30 megs to install the app, or 30 gigs to install the app, right? I mean the operating system. We're gonna go ahead and create the machine. We're not done yet. We're gonna give it more memory. Before we do that, before we click finish, I will put we'd go to the market store and say, hey, you know what? Let's buy on our bare metal machine, or pretend bare metal. Let's buy an extra 2 gigs, right? So in this machine, I give it 4 gigs for our Ubuntu server, right? It doesn't need that much, right? So I usually give it a little bit more. I give it 1 more, especially in this instance, just because of the virtual non-volatile, the memory, where you always have that little bit of memory that you need just in case, right? So that extra megabyte would help in certain situations, right? And I'm also gonna add. Okay, so I can't create a disk because in a real environment, until I close this machine and power it on, I won't be able to create a disk yet. So it'll auto detect one for us now until it's actually created, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and once I gave myself 2 more gigs of RAM, I'm gonna close the machine, and that'll create all the files. Oh, it should be 8. Sorry. And multiples of 2. Close. It says the nearest is 496. Okay, 496. Okay, whatever. So we'll go back to what we've given it. And this is, but you can give more, right? It all depends on how much you have. I don't think you only have 8 gigs, right? So in this instance, like if you had 128 gigs or 256 gigs, you can give it as much as you want. But you see that maximum recommended right there? That's our maximum size where our blue marker is. And then our recommended memory in your instance, because you're using up a lot of memory. So right now I'll just leave it as is and just create the machine.
Okay.
Close it. All right. We'll just close it. So you got to look at the markers. So when we look at the markers, it helps with knowing what's recommended in your instance, because your physical machine, right, has 8. So right now you're not physically using all 4 gigs. You're going to be using maybe 1 or 2, right? So it's always good to stay in between the recommended or the guest operating system recommended, right? Remember, the more memory you have on your laptop in this test environment that we're doing, in this educational environment, the better, right? So I'm just going to give it 4 for now. Remember, I can give it 8, right? But it doesn't mean that we're going to use all 8. Sorry, I can give it 6. That's our recommended, right? So even if I give it 6, it'll still work, but it doesn't mean you're going to use all 6, right? So keep an eye on that, those markers, because those markers make sense. And I also want you to keep an eye on your CPU performance, right? So when we're looking at our CPU performance, right, we're looking through our task manager. I usually use task manager. Can you double click on that RPM gauge there? Yeah. RPM gauge. Performance here, is that it? Or that? So I just need performance. If you could press the 3 lines there at the top. Oh, there we go. Okay, so right now you have 7 gigs. You're at the 84. What I recommend is try to keep yourself underneath 75 to 80% at all times, right? So if you're not using a machine, like I said, when you're not using a machine, you right click on the machine itself, and then you suspend the machine. Okay? Any questions about looking at performance, using the markers? Because that also helps. Can you minimize that for me?
The taskbar?
The taskbar, yeah. Yeah. Minimize that. Minimize the task manager for me. Yeah. So remember, looking at the markers does make sense in your instance.
Close it or minimize?
Minimize it. Right. So again, remember in time, we're in 2025, things get bigger, right? Like a lot of people are buying 16 to 32 gig laptops. And there are students that I've seen with 8 gig laptops. So we try to do the minimal as possible. Like we can install an operating system with 4 GB. It's recommended 8 GB memory and 2 processors, right? But it doesn't matter in your instance. You can use the recommended that they tell you. So even if it says, okay, just to install operating system, I can use 6, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to use the 6 for this machine, right? It won't use it all. If it's always on, then yeah, it's a different story, right? In a real environment, it's going to be on, so you're going to have more memory and more CPU processor speed, and you're going to have those disks, right? So this machine is off. I'm just going to click close now, and I'm going to finish it. Now, once I finish it, I'm going to give it an extra NAT adapter. If I can add. See if I can add another NAT adapter. So as you can see, the auto detect, it won't allow us to create disks until it's physically closed and created, right? So once it's created, we're able to now, it'll auto detect what disk you have, right? And then it'll create one for you, and then we can go ahead and add the hardware from the hardware wizard, right? So in this instance, we're just going to add whatever we can based on the list, right? If this is a Windows 11, we'd use the trusted platform module. But in this instance, we're going to create 2 NAT adapters, and I'm going to click finish. So that covers that portion of it. If we talked about did we talk about VMnets? Yeah, we talked about VMnets. If you're looking to segment your or delegate your machines or users in a specific virtual network, then I recommend you use the VLAN/VM network way. But in this instance, and this is good for a an on-premises branch, right? Home environment where you don't need internet for this to work. So if you do need internet, then you would add your virtual nets for NAT to share the host IP address. So that way you have internet. I'm not going to talk about NAT too much. There's 3 different types of NATs. I'm sure you know there's dynamic, there's static, and then we call the overload. overload NAT. So those are some, and there's also PAT NATs, right? So these are some specific NATs, and I showed you and I explained to you what they do and what they not do. But in this instance, because it's a hypervisor 2, we're going to be using NAT, right? Now, if I add a machine and I want it to communicate with each other, this is where we're going to use our custom specific virtual network, right? But in this instance, we're just going to leave it as NAT. We want internet. I'm going to click close. So once I finish, it'll create our disk. It'll create our disk, our hard disk. Once our disk is created, right, we can add a secondary disk. So this will create all the files. And you see the configuration files. If we go back to our configuration folder path. Right. Let's see if I go here, I'm here. There's another way. So oh yeah, options. Here it is. So if I go to the working directory, so here's the working directory, and I go to browse. We can go to our machine here and then click OK. One of these allows us to get in there. I'm gonna have to take a look at that. All right. So right now you have a machine that's got BIOS in it. So if you power on the machine, it's just got a BIOS on it. You'll see it load, right? Right, so it'll load a BIOS. That's all you have. You have nothing else on it. You've created this machine. So if we were to go to, I lost, if you can do me a favor and right click on this and shut it down for me. So right click and shut down. On the top, yeah, right click and power and then shut down. So right now that's all you have is a BIOS, right? You have nothing else. Shut down or power off. Power off guest. So there's a difference between shutting down the guest and powering off the guest. So if you're shutting down the guest, you're shutting off the operating system. If it's a bare metal machine, we power it down. So we would right click and power. We'd right click, we go to power, and we go to power off. Right? That'll obviously power off the machine completely. So what I want you to do is I want you to go to your C drive. That allows me to do that now. Oh, does it allow me to do it? Maybe it's on your other screen.
Yes. Oh,
That's
get
why.
that.
That's why. That's why. That's okay. That's okay. All right. So if we go to our Wayne virtual machine, right? So there's our machine here. So these are all the files that I talked about. Okay. With me? So these are the split files that I was telling you about. Now for us to open up the machine, we have our VMX file. That's our machine configuration, right? And then we have our VMDK file. So this file here is what opens up will open up our machine. Oh, sorry, VMX. My apologies. Open. Sorry. So if I go back to my apologies there. So if I go to File, Open, and I go to C drive, go to Wing and Virtual Machine, open this machine. The VMX file is what we need to open, and this will open up our software, and then that way we're able to now power on this machine so we can start up the guest. Again, it's got no operating system, so you're not going to it's not going to connect, right? Because you don't have a hard drive yet. So if we go to, so I'm just going to click no, right? And this is Pixie. We're not booting from Pixie. Do you have, did Can you double click on operating system, Ubuntu, for me? Right click. And is there an operating system installed on it?
Please.
Is there an operating system installed on it yet? If you right click, right click, yeah, right click. And I want you to go to settings, and I want you to go to SATA. Okay. All right. And you see where it says auto detect? I want you to click on connect that power on and connected at the device status. Right? Device status. Right? And then I want you to use ISO image file. So in here is once your machine is created, we're going to go to browse. And in the downloads folder, we downloaded Ubuntu. Do you remember? We downloaded Ubuntu.
Yeah.
And I think that was in the downloads folder last week. So the Ubuntu 24, that the top one there, and I want you to double click on that and hit open. So that'll mount our ISO, right? So when we power it on, we're now able to fool the virtual machine and let it load, right? But before we do that, I want you to add a secondary SCSI disk. So I want you to go to add here at the bottom. I should be able to, it's not letting me click here. I don't know why. Maybe I stop control and I'll take control again. And I want you to go to next. Yeah. Add another disk. Click next. A disk. Hard disk. That's CD DVD drive. I want you to click on a hard disk, the first option. Yeah. And then the next. And recommended is going to take SCSI. And then we're going to click next. And again, IDE and NVMe, if you want to go back there for a second. Go back. So IDE disks can be added only when the VM is powered off. And then NVMe disks can only be added while the VMware is powered off. So these are the only two disks that are allowed. So you'll see a difference between SATA and SCSI. Don't worry about it. It'll give you the recommended state. They all do the same thing. So I want you to click next because it's recommended that you create a SCSI disk. And we're going to create a new disk. We're not going to use an existing virtual disk. Again, you can use this option if you have one already configured, right? So sometimes what they'll do is you'll have a backup of something and then you can configure it later. And then what we'll do is we'll give it another 200. Wait, 200. You can actually delete it and type it in. Yeah, and then click. We're going to use a split for our Hyper 2, our hypervisor type 2, and we're going to click next. And that's the name of the file. So remember, this is what your disks are going to be. These are your disks now. Each disk is going to have a different name, right? You'll see VMware DK or -1.vmdk. So each disk that you add will have a different name. And then again, this is where your disk size will get bigger, right? So the more it increases, the more it's going to take up space on your laptop, right? So that's why we want to move it to our D drive or E drive or external drive or SAN storage or NAS or whatever, which have more space, right? So what you're going to do is just click finish because it already specifies. You can browse the location too if you click on browse. Wayne, can you click on browse for me?
Sure.
And we can specify where we want this created, right? So, and then we go back to our C drive. So if you can go to this PC, in this instance, this is where we're going to save it for today. C drive. Yep. Double click, open. Yeah. And Wayne's virtual machine. Double click on the OpenStack Ubuntu server, and we're just going to paste it there and save. Right. And then we're going to finish. And that's it. So what I want you to do is you're going to hit OK. You're going to hit OK. So we've loaded the SATA. We have our two NATs, et cetera, et cetera. So what you're going to do is right click on OS Ubuntu server, the tab there at the top. I want you to right click. And this is where, before you do anything, you're going to go to power. Yeah. And before you press restart, right? before you press anything, I just want to make note of this. So what I want you to do is when you click on restart, you see the black, like the black colored area in our virtual machine where it says network boot. I want you to left click your mouse in there, right? And then once it says install operating system, you're going to hit OK. You're going to hit OK. It'll tell you when you're going to press it, right? So I want you to restart it. And then with your mouse, I want you to double click inside the machine so that you have access and your steering, your hands are on the steering wheel. That way it's accessible to you. And then when it tells you to load the operating system, you're going to press enter or any key. So can you do that for me? Can you right click and restart?
I seem to have lost my mouse. I don't know if I lost it on this
Okay.
machine.
So, but dubbing it in, right? So what I want you to do is type Control Alt on your keyboard, and that'll remove your mouse out. So, but that'll return. There you go. So try moving your mouse now, and then double click inside the box. So this is what I
Here.
want you to do. Yeah. You see, you can't move your mouse. So the
Yes.
cat actually caught the mouse, right? So
Yes.
what I want, so basically you're inside the machine. Now to return to your computer, you're gonna hit the Control Alt key. And that'll give you access to the key to the mouse again. So I want you to go to OS Ubuntu Server 01, right? Right click. Actually, you know what? Can you close the library for me? Close it out. We're gonna use the tabs at the top because just so that you make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, yeah. There you go. Okay, so I want you to right click on OS Ubuntu there on the tab there. Yeah, our tab, right click. And I want you to go to power. Just remember, as soon as you click restart, I want you to go inside your virtual machine and wait for the prompt to boot from the ISO. So I want you to restart the guest, right? And then yes, restart. And I want you to click inside the box, click. All right, there you go, perfect. So this is where we're going to go ahead and install our server. So in this instance, we're going to try and install it. So we're going to click on try and install, and it says press enter to boot, or E to edit the commands before booting, or C for command line. So we can use our up arrows to select the entry that we want, make sure that it's highlighted, and then press enter. So I want you to press enter. Am I able to take control?
Yes, I can give that.
So we're gonna move this stuff for you, Wayne. That way it's not interfering with your laptop, right? Because it's a small laptop. Are you able? Am I? Oh, there we go. Let's see if I can work. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Thank you. So in this instance, you could have taken a snapshot if you wanted to before, right? But I recommend after you install the operating system, so you have a fresh copy with no settings, modified or anything. So it's always good to do that after. So we're not going to create the snapshot. We'll take it after we install it. Okay. It's just
And this is our Linux machine.
this is going to be our Linux machine that's going to run our script and project. It's going to run our OpenStack project script. So we're going to run a script, and then that's going to open up our OpenStack. Then we'll create our partitions, our volumes, right? Our volumes. Remember we talked about when we drew out the volumes and partitions, our RAID configuration. See, if it was a hard metal machine, let me see if I can open up Paint here. I'll explain to you again quickly. Yeah. So this is where we're going to install it pretty much. Yeah. So I'm going to click next for English. And see if so remember what I said, right? If this is a type 1 hypervisor, right? If this was a type 1, a bare metal machine, it'll have everything here, and then we'll just install the operating system. That's our hypervisor. But because it's a type 2, right? We have a laptop. We have a laptop, and within our laptop, it's installed on top of an operating system, right? So we have our operating system, which is Windows 10, and then on top of that, we've installed our hypervisor. So that's the only difference, right? And when we're going to create our well, we're not creating a RAID, but I recommend you create a RAID and learn how to create a RAID with our 2 disks, because we do have 2 disks. And remember what we talked about, the different types of RAIDs. And I can show you that, and we'll do that. We can show you how to do that on our Ubuntu system using command prompt, right? The Ubuntu command. And I can also show you on a Windows machine, but you don't have a Windows machine, so I can't show you anything. If you if you can install Windows Server on a second machine as a test machine, that'd be great. Can you do that for me?
Install Windows Server on.
Yes, on one machine. So what I want you to do is install Windows Server OS 2019. You just got to download the You got to download the ISO. I showed you how to do that in a video.
Okay, you want me to do that now?
No. You can do that off. You can do that now. We can do that later. It all depends. We can do that in another class tomorrow. We do. It's up
So
to
that's
you.
when
But
but we have to
I can show you RAID. I can explain what RAID is because I
Okay.
can't explain it in this machine because it's
so
it's
I'll
a
have to do that
laptop.
on the Hyper-V, right? I'll have to do
On
a
a
Hyper-V.
server. Yeah, on a server. You'd have to create a virtual machine on the Hyper-V, so a hypervisor. So on our hypervisor 2, right? So this is our bare metal machine. Don't use this one. This is just an example of hypervisor 1, right? You're not using this one. You're using this concept here. Remember we talked about that. This concept, right? So you have your laptop, and within your laptop, or you're opening up Workstation Pro, you're creating our machine, and then you're just building a VM, like I showed you. You're building a VM. You're shutting down the old one, and you're building another VM. You're saving it to your USB, your external drive, right? So right now, this is your external drive. A lot of lag. Sorry. External drive. Oh my God. So this is our external drive, NAS, or USB.
I think that got put. The text got put somewhere else. My apologies.
Okay. Let me try it. Can you get this? Yeah, can you move that? Yeah, left click. Yeah, just close. Yeah, there you go. All right, so click on that for now. All right, so external USB, not external drive, server, USB, or NAS, right? So you can use anything that you want. And again, this is connected to your laptop, right? So this will be connected to your laptop, and then you'll have, this is going to be your laptop, right? And then on top of that, you have your Windows 10 or 11, right? And then on top of that, you have your hypervisor 2, right? Right, which is Workstation Pro, VMware Workstation Pro. Are we with me?
So I'm with you on Workstation Pro, but on top of that, I need to install my hypervisor would be Hyper-V.
Your hypervisor, yeah, in this Windows server, yeah, because I showed you back. I want you to install Hyper-V, right? But I also want to use this as a test machine to show users how we can create RAID, right? So you're using the same concept with two hard disks, right? You're creating 2 disks.
Right.
You're creating 2 cards on your bare metal machine. You're creating another, because we talked about RAID, right? But I want to show you RAID, how that RAID works. And this is a OS system. On top of that, you're going to be creating your hypervisor, right? And I also want you to learn how to use hypervisor 2, and this is going to be Hyper-V. It's a role.
So the ground floor would be Windows
Oh,
Server, and then
Windows Server.
on top of Windows Server would be Hyper-V.
our Hyper-V role, which is our hypervisor 2. So it's a type 2. Right? We talked about the differences, right? So
Yeah, I
Microsoft
understand the
uses
difference. I got that
Microsoft
100%.
uses Hyper-V, and then our Hypervisor 1 is just a machine. It's a physical bare metal. It's just metal. And then with your disks and your NATs and your NIC cards, right? So you got your NIC cards, right? We know that these are NICs. So just for an example, we're using one, right? For now. And then these are your two disks. So on top inside, what we're gonna do is load the operating system, right? The disk. What we're going to do in this case, we get a pen. So we're in this is going to have a CD DVD, this machine. It's going to have a CD DVD. We're going to load the ISO, right? We're going to load the ISO. And then within that ISO, we're going to install our Hypervisor 1. And then this is where we create our virtual machines. Okay? But instead, we're creating our virtual machines in here, in this, inside, on top of the hypervisor, right? Does that make sense?
This is the type 2 instance.
This is a type 2 instance. Yeah. There's a type 2. It's a little bit like, okay, so
I get it.
you'll understand. So for example, in this case, your external drive is where we're going to have all our virtual machines right now. This is where our virtual machines are. So without that, we can't operate our hypervisors. Right? So I'm moving away from your laptop. I'm not using your laptop. I'm just using it as software right now. So I'm installing the software, and the software is going to run the configuration files that run it. But the processing speed, the resources are part of your laptop. So whatever laptop resources you have, right? So remember, when we're creating these virtual machines, we're also creating the contents. We're creating the contents, and we're saving it to our external drive, right? So that way our external drive, or 5 terabytes, whatever it is, 5 or 2 terabytes. What is it? 5 terabytes?
2.
2 terabytes? Okay. So 2 terabytes, right? So whatever that is where all our files are going to be. And that's in a non-production environment, a test environment, with the resources that we have, this is the best solution. And I've seen millions of students use this, right? And a lot of students are using it. It's best to have the right environment first. Remember, have the right hardware, Wayne. But in this instance, we do what we can, right? We need to shut off machines to build another machine. Let's do that. Let's shut down the machine, build another machine, right? Give it 6 terabytes. I mean, 6 gigabyte RAM. We're not using the physical, but once we're done installing the Windows Server with that 6 gigs, we can now close the machine and decrease the virtual RAM within our Workstation Pro settings, right? So if I want to give it more, if I want to install the operating system because I want it to install quicker, all I need to do is shut the machine down, right click here. Can you right click here for me?
Where's that now? I'm sorry.
I'm going to take control again. Can you allow control?
Yes. Sure, sure.
All right. So remember, you go here, you power it off, right? You power it off, right? Or you suspend the gas. It doesn't use your physical memory on the physical laptop, right? So that's what we're trying to do. Is we're trying to avoid a lot of that stuff. So make note of that. So for next class, please have 2 Ubuntu servers created. This one's going to be mine, and then you're going to create one called 2, and then you're going to have Microsoft Server with the Hyper-V installed for test environment. And then that's when I'll explain the RAID. We now installed Ubuntu, right? So I'm going to finish installing Ubuntu, so you have that in our series video. And then once we're done with this, I'm going to end today's session, and we'll continue tomorrow. So I want you to click on live session user for me, because it's not letting me. Can you click on that for me? Yeah. Okay. Just remember, try to save memory, try to have less open, that way we can do with what we can. So we're going to click on English again. I guess it just paused as I was explaining the diagram to you. So I'm going to go ahead and click next. Should click next, enter.
You need me to do that?
Yeah. Yeah,
English?
there's a lot of lag. Yeah, yeah. Can you hit the full screen? You see that right there at the top where my arrow is? Click on that. Yeah, there you go. Click next. Next. Okay, so we're gonna customize. You can customize this however you like. It's up to you. Again, before you set it up, you could take a look at these settings later on, but you have your seeing, your hearing, your typing, your pointing, your clicking, your zoom. So you could take a look at some of these settings if you click on one of them for me, pointing and clicking, typing. Can you click on one? This is just accessibility. And again, you can make this however you want, right? So these are just specific settings that are customizable to you. So making sure that you have this however you like. So it's sort of like your out of box experience with the different. So when you're installing your Windows 10 or Windows 11, there's certain things you can add and not. So you can do however you like, and then which is accessible which is customized just for you, right? Or for the server needs. So what we'll do is we'll click next. So keep in mind that it should be accessible to everybody, right? We're using US English, right? And we can test to type your keyboard if you go back. Okay? And type here to test your keyboard. Type. Yeah, so that's good. The keyboard works. So we're going to click next. We're using a wired connection, right? And we're using our internet. And update is available. Yes, we're going to update it. We're going to update now. Just let's update that now, because usually I do that after. So it's always good to update it beforehand. And I'll show you how to do that through the Ubuntu. All right, then click close installer. Close. Close installer here, the green button. Yeah, there we go. Click. Click on it. All right, perfect. So here you go. Here's Ubuntu. I want you to. So there's not much to familiarize yourself with. This is pretty straightforward. If you need an internet browser, they use Firefox. So that Firefox would be our internet browser. Then we also have our other browser here. If we click on the blue, that's I think that's email. Double click on that for me. Okay, so I'm going to request control here, and I'm going to go ahead and explain and then what I'll get you to do is for tomorrow, I'll get you to create 2 machines for me. Please have them ready, please, 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 and save to your USB. That way we can.
So we're creating. We just created a second machine here, right?
Yeah, so this is one, second machine. I'm creating it again, but it has Ubuntu installed this time. So what I want you to do is create another machine with Ubuntu again and call it Ubuntu 2. Ubuntu 1 will be the machine that I use. Ubuntu 2 will be the machine that you use. So you're gonna watch the video and follow me as I create Ubuntu 1. And then what you're gonna do is mimic that copy on Ubuntu 2. And then you're also gonna have you're gonna have a third virtual machine that's gonna have a Windows Microsoft Server 2019 ISO. So you're going to download the ISO. So you're going to type in Microsoft Windows Server 2019 ISO download, and you're going to find the link for it, and you're going to install the English 64-bit version.
Am I gonna run into an issue?
No,
with licensing?
no, there's no licensing. You're getting the evaluation copy. It gives you about 6 months. Once you buy your subscription, then your subscription will handle the licensing, right? So this will be available for 6 months, 180 days.
Okay.
It's just test, right? This is a Hyper 2 environment we use for training, especially for my test, for my schooling environment, for my school. The students I use evaluation license, which is 180 days. They need to sign up for it, right? Using their information, and then it's good for 180 days, right? And again, I think we can extend it an extra 180 days. I can show you how to do that after, right? There's a way to extend it for another 180 days, so almost a year. But again, understand, and then we're not going to import it. We're going to click on double click on that import from previous. I don't want to import it, and then save and continue because you have nothing to import. It's just a plain machine, and then save and continue. Am I able to? I'm not able to do anything here. I'm not sure what's going on. There's a little bit of a lag here. But what I want you to do is I want you to create these two machines, right? You know how to create a Windows server. You know how to install a Windows Server ISO, right? Or do you need help?
It's pretty straightforward. You click on it and follow the instructions, and
Next, finish. That's right. And when you're installing it as an
get the next step.
administrator. And an administrator, you're installing the administrator account, and then your administrator is what you're going to log into. You're
Skip the
give it a
next step.
password. And
Skip
then,
the step.
Skip the step. Yeah, that's correct. Skip the step. Again, this is just a test, right? I want you to save the. Okay, so skip. Okay, start browsing. All right. Type Windows, Microsoft Windows ISO, just to show you on the video, so you have it again. Microsoft Windows Server. I can't. Am I able to take control?
I can let you do it. It doesn't seem like you're able to do
It's not letting
much.
me. Yeah, it's not letting me. I don't know why. It's okay. It's fine. We'll fix that problem for hopefully by tomorrow. We'll have less resources and I'm sure it'll be a little bit faster. All good. So 2019 or 16 or 19, whatever you want, 22, whatever version you want. You can download all four if you want. It's up to you, just so that you learn. And then ISO download 19. Yeah, they started 212, 212 R2, 216, 219, 222, now 225. So I want you to scroll down and you see where it says Evaluation Center, the Microsoft link. So that's an authentic link. I want you to click on that link. Evaluation. Yeah, that's what you want. You want the evaluation.
So I went down too far.
Yeah.
Evaluation. Where the hell
It's
it go?
at the top. It's the second top. Yeah, there we go. So again, this is good for 6 months. So you can study with this machine for 6 months. I want you to download the ISO. Now, in a Hyper-V environment,
I have this, so it'd be easier because I already have the download already.
Yeah, you're gonna download this on a USB drive, right? You're gonna cut this and move this to a nice USB drive, right? So create another folder called software. That way, it's not on your laptop and it's not taking up the physical. And then this is where you're gonna register. So you put your first name, you fill out all this stuff. Scroll down. You fill out all this stuff. You're not gonna do this on this machine, right? And then download now. Once you download, I showed you how to mount it in a earlier session of this video. If you scroll a little, maybe half an hour back, it'll show you how to install the ISO on the CD DVD drive. And then once you've created that bare metal machine with the 2 disks, 2 NIC cards, right, and 6 GB virtual RAM or DRAM, we call it. And then once you install that, you can power it off and then decrease the server to like 2 or 4, whatever you want, right? At this point, you can go up to 2. It's just a machine. That's all it is. There's not much. It needs 2 gigs of RAM. We're just using it for test, right? So remember, the more memory you have, your machine has, like your laptop has, the more memory you can give it and have more machines working at the same time. So I can have 4 or 5 machines working at the same time, right? Especially with 16 GB laptop. If you've got an 8, then you have to decrease the RAM. And I have a calculation somewhere. I have to look for it. But if I want 4 machines running at the same time, I can have 4 Ubuntu boxes running 1 gig or 2 gigs each, right? So you'll have 4 gigabytes, 4 machines with 4 gigabytes total. I've worked with that and it worked really well. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe
So
so.
I've had with 4 gigs of RAM resources, like for its own running, I've had 4 Ubuntu boxes working on a gig or 2 gigs with the operating system already installed. So imagine me and then communicating with each other. So I've been through bigger worse situations than I have. But again, we do what we can. Just remember to use your external drive. Okay.
Got it. Now, I'm gonna order myself another because
Yeah.
I forgot I bought this a couple of years ago, but these things do fail on you.
Yeah,
So
just make sure the read and write speed is high. Just remember when we're looking at read and write speeds for these NAS
okay.
servers, for these drives, even if you buy an IDE or a SATA disk and you attach it, just make sure it's got high speed, high read and write, because you need to write a lot, read and write a lot, right? It's not $100,000 server. You can save money and do this. You could do this course easily with what you have right now. So I've done this on many people's laptops. So we'll do it with what we can. Just remember, if you've got two machines, make sure you close one of them before you work on the other one. Save your resources, right?
You
Close
talking about
Windows. Yeah,
the virtual machines that I put
your
on?
virtual machines. Yeah. So for example, when you're building your second virtual machine, you turn this off. Install the operating system,
Yes,
create
makes
the
sense.
snapshot, create the snapshot. So if you write, what we're gonna do is create a snapshot now. I want you to create a snapshot. So I want you to go OS Ubuntu Server 1 tab, and I want you to right click because I think that's it for today. Right
Where
click,
am I going now?
right click on Ubuntu Server
I don't
1
have
at
anything on my screen right now.
the top, at the
Oh
top
yes.
toolbar. Yeah, right click, right click. Right now it's in full screen. If you want to remove the full screen, there's that full screen
I right clicked on it.
snapshot.
Snapchat. Yeah,
Take a snapshot. And I
yeah.
want you to call this snapshot one dash OpenStack with Ubuntu. Yeah. Okay. And then in the description is where you want to give it as much information because you need to know what you did, right? So you've created this machine. Let's say dash create the machine. Create the machine. Let's say virtual machine. Create the virtual machine. Right? Dash allocate and then next number two space. No, enter. You can go line by line. It'll let you. You can do it. Yeah. Okay. Dash. Allocate resources to virtual machine. Hardware resources to virtual machine. So HD resource to virtual machine. After you're done. So allocate HD resources to virtual machine. Okay. And then number three, install Ubuntu 24 .04, I think it is, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember the version, but 24. Yeah, there you go. X 24X. But 20 install Ubuntu. Can you go to the about there at the question mark there? Maybe can't remember if it's -10 or -04 .04 .04
Um,
.04.
I need to go to the about.
The about in the Ubuntu server, in the inside the Ubuntu server.
Um,
Or yeah,
okay.
so take okay, so remove full screen from our
I do
remove the full
escape.
screen. No, so you see that little box there that I get in the middle. Yeah, it's like grade. Yeah, there we go. No. Go to the right. Go. Move your mouse to the right, straight 180. One no, to the left, to the left, to the left, to the left. Remember the full screen button? No, to the right. You see those icons there with the screens? Up. So up to the left. To the left. The other right. That one. That's it. That's our full screen. Click on that. Okay, never
Share
mind.
sound.
Yeah, it's okay. Just like I said, this is what you're gonna do, and you need to make sure that you do that. You have to take the snapshot. So install only. Let's just say XX for now. XX. It doesn't matter. It's just a test. But you have to understand. You have to put the version so you know what the version is in yours, right? So in yours, you're gonna put, and then you're gonna put updated.
Did an update.
Update. Yeah, update Ubuntu. Updated Ubuntu. That's it. Oh, and again, I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Wayne, thank you very much. I'm just gonna stop recording. Stop recording here. All right. All right, so I stopped recording. Okay, so tell me whenever you want. But I need these machines.
Yeah,
If
Monday
you can
would
get these
work
machines,
better for me because I work from home next week. This week I'm in the office, so the commute's kind of a